Hey, it's Thursday, April 30th. We're at the end of the month of April and we're reading through the book of Acts. We're at Acts chapter 18 for today. If you haven't read it, go ahead and pause the video right now, grab your Bible and read Acts chapter 18. And if you haven't watched the Bible Project videos about the book of Acts yet, I would strongly encourage you to do that. They're so good, and they break down the book of Acts sort of like the story goes here and then it changes and goes here, and it doesn't take a long time to watch those. They are on our webpage, northcoastcalvary.org/elevate. You can also just search YouTube for the Bible Project. Those guys do really good work. So in chapter 18, Paul comes to a city in Greece called Corinth. And think of Corinth as being like the New York City of its time. A lot of wealth, a lot of trade, a lot of international visitors. It was located right there by the sea. And then from Corinth, he goes to Ephesus. Now you may recognize the name Corinthians. There's two letters to the Corinthians. That refers to Corinth in the New Testament. And the book of the Ephesians refers to the people living in Ephesus. And Paul really loved the people in Ephesus. We'll talk more about that in an upcoming devotional. But I want to talk about a character named Apollos who gets introduced to us in Acts chapter 18. And you know, I've been asking this question, is Acts primarily the story of what God did through human beings, or what human beings did with God's help? And I answered that question when we did Acts 16. I said, I think it's primarily what God did through human beings, God's plan. But now, with the example of Apollos, I'm going to say, yeah, it's also what humans did through God. Look at verse 24 through 26, chapter 18. Meanwhile, a Jew named Apollos, a native of Alexandria in Egypt, came to Ephesus. He was a learned man with a thorough knowledge of the Scriptures. He had been instructed in the way of the Lord, and he spoke with great fervor and taught about Jesus accurately, though he knew only the baptism of John. He began to speak boldly in the synagogue. When Priscilla and Aquila, two friends of Paul's, heard him, they invited him to their home and explained to him the way of God more adequately. So God absolutely has a plan, and he knows what he's doing, and he's looking for people to carry out that plan. But that doesn't mean that we as Christians should be passive either. Because you could come along someone who has great faith in God, but there's something they don't quite understand, or there's a missing piece to their faith, and you could be used like Priscilla and Aquila to make Apollos even stronger. You know, in Elevate, we sometimes challenge you to say, we're here to help you take the next step in your relationship with God. And the next step for you could be allowing God to use you to influence someone else to have a stronger and better faith. Just like God used Priscilla and Aquila to strengthen Apollos, who becomes a major figure in the early Christian movement. Well, that's our Devo for today. For tomorrow, read through Acts chapter 19, and we'll check in together right here.